Hi guys, another day, another Brexit here to respond to. So once again, the YouTube algorithm threw a right-winger at me. Now this guy is an anti-immigration YouTuber living in Scotland. Now I don't know if this individual is English and moved to Scotland some time ago or lives so close to the English border that he has an English accent. But that may be irrelevant to what he has to say. The guy claims that the SNP government wants to import 500,000 immigrants via a Scottish visa system. This is something that has been rejected as a concept by Labour, and while providing Scotland with more control over immigration would help its economy, it's highly unlikely to happen. But that doesn't stop the right wing from getting angry. Have a listen.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes, and all I can say is deep breath, because you're going to go on a ride with this one. It's astonishing. Now, quick background, we know Scotland is massively under-resourced. There's not enough GPs to go round, there's not enough hospital spaces to go round, there's not enough school places to go round, there's not enough of anything. And with 800,000 people on the dole, most of whom aren't even actively looking for work, there is, this massive state, of benefits that has to be paid for by those few people that are working and that aren't in the public sector. Given all these problems, given that under-resourcing, and given that huge unemployment rate, one has to ask why Yvette Cooper is in talks with the Scottish government about the issuing of a new type of visa called the Scottish Immigration Visa.
Okay, I don't believe for a moment that this is actually happening, and I'll explain why. Two reasons. First of all, the Labour government have said that they want to bring down immigration. They want to rely on British workers, not foreign workers. They want to train up their own. So why would Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, go to Scotland and say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you access to more foreign workers? Doesn't make any political sense. The other problem with that, and of course the right-wing media, as soon as they'd hear something like this, would say, look at all these immigrants coming into England via the back door, coming through Scotland, crossing the border unchecked into England. This is a disaster. So this would be a disaster politically for Labour if they were to engage in such a thing. I'm not saying it's not happening. It just doesn't make any sense to me. The other point is, if for a moment the Scottish government were able to increase the number of visas, if they were in control of immigration, and they were able to fill the gap in the care sector and in the NHS, well, it would be presented as a victory, as a success. But that would run contrary to what the Labour government in Westminster is saying, that we need to bring down immigration, we need to train up our own. So once again, I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm not saying that there isn't some sort of discussion taking place, but it doesn't make any sense.
Now, these discussions are coming amidst all the problems that Scotland has with having too few places. And yet, they're aiming to introduce this visa, which will allow up to 500,000 people, immigrants, to go to Scotland, presumably to do the jobs that Scots don't want to do. And then they'll do them for bottom dollar prices, which then destroys wages for everyone else.
That doesn't make any sense. If jobs are going unfilled, how would filling those jobs drive down wages? Just think about it logically. There's a job available. A Scottish person is not taking up that position. So the care sector, for example, brings somebody in from abroad to do that job. How would that drive down wages? It doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe I'm missing something.
If there are jobs in Scotland and nobody's doing them, then the only reason must be that they're paying too little money.
No, that's not the only reason. That's one of the reasons. If you actually listen to what people in the care sector are saying, the problem is the nature of the work. See, there's a big difference between working in a supermarket, for example, and working in a care home. There are stress levels in both sectors, But the stress is completely different in the care sector. So, for example, many people end up with physical problems because they've been passing day after day, hour after hour, lifting elderly people out of bed and into bed, out of bathtubs, into bathtubs. All of this puts a massive amount of physical strain on an employee for something like minimum wage or slightly above minimum wage. And then there's, of course, the mental stress, dealing with people with dementia, the skills required to do that. So the care sector have said, look, we can double the wages, but we want people who actually want to do the job. There's no point forcing people into these jobs. There's no point just focusing on money, because you get somebody in, they'll last a week or maybe a month, and then they'll quit. And then we're back to square one again. It's better for us to have a system where we can access workers who actually want to do these jobs, because that's important.
If you can't fill the role, put the salary up. Eventually somebody will take the role with that level of salary. That's how it should.
Just another thing is, where is this money coming from? Because it's normally local government that cover the cost of social care. But the Tories have cut funding for the local government. So who's going to pay for this?
Should work. But when then instead you are flooding the market with people, foreigners, who are going to go in, dilute the culture, dilute the heritage, dilute the history.
Whoa, wait a minute. Where did that come from? Look, I'm an immigrant. I'm an Irishman living in Italy. Have I diluted the culture, the history, the heritage of Italy? I don't think so. I hope I haven't. So he's suggesting that people coming from... does this include English people who have moved from England to Scotland? Are they diluting Scottish history, Scottish culture? Or those are, they're a separate case? Which is, like, there are people coming from Brazil, there are people coming from Poland, there are people coming from Africa, countries in Africa, there are people coming from Asia, they're coming to Scotland. How are they diluting Scottish culture? Have the Scots stopped wearing kilts and drinking whiskey?
And do the job for rock bottom prices, who will then need in-work benefits as well. You've got to ask, who's going to pay for it? Perhaps we shouldn't be allowing in-work benefits. Perhaps there should be no such thing as in-work benefits.
I agree 100% here with the YouTuber. In-work benefits is a failure. In-work benefits exist because wages are too low. And what's happening is, because wages are too low, they're not able to cover the cost of living. They need to be topped up. And in-work benefits top up people's wages. That should not be happening. Companies should not be allowed to pay people wages that they can't live on. That needs to be completely reformed.
And force employers to pay a suitable level of salary. That would encourage people to work. Not bring in third worlders, 500,000 third worlders, just to do these jobs.
Okay, it's not just about pay. See, when you're talking about people on benefits, many of them can't do these jobs because they don't have the skills. Many people can't do the jobs because the job is not available in their area. It would require them using public transport, for example, to travel across the country. And we're hearing news that public transport is going to become more expensive. Like, there are obstacles in the way of people taking up these jobs. If these jobs are not being filled, this is a massive problem for the economy. If the care sector has massive shortages, if the NHS has massive shortages, then you need to deal with that. You need to fill those gaps. And if you can't find people in the local area, then you need to go further afield.
Third worlders who? Hate us all.
What? He says something that's quite reasonable, and then he includes a bit of racism in there as well. This is insane. Third worlders hate Scotland. In what way do third worlders hate Scotland? Why would somebody abandon their home, their family, their friends, their way of life to move to Scotland if they hate Scotland?
This is just astonishing, isn't it? That they're even considering this. Now, there's 5%, 5.5 million people in Scotland. You're adding 500,000 more. That's a whole 10% of immigrants. Your population will increase 10%, and it'll be exclusively immigrants. Where are they going to sleep? There's a housing shortage. This is unbelievable, isn't it? Where are they going to go to the hospital? What doctors are they going to see? What schools are they going to put their children into?
Okay, we keep coming back to this point about housing. Who is responsible for housing? See, if you have a growing economy, the government should be providing enough affordable and social housing. If the government are doing that, then there isn't a problem. You can't just keep going back to, well, the problem is immigrants. We should be stopping immigrants from coming in to fill jobs that we can't fill with local people because we don't have enough housing. Okay, housing is a problem, yes. But the solution cannot be, okay, we're not going to build enough houses, so we're going to keep these people out. So we're going to see our country fall apart because we don't have enough staff. And he mentioned doctors here. Well, some of the immigrants will be doctors. So you don't want doctors coming, you don't want to increase the number of doctors because some of them will be foreigners who will fill the gap that exists. For what reason? Because they're foreigners. That seems to be the crux of the position here. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm willing to discuss this with this YouTuber if he wants, but what are you trying to get at here? You don't want immigrants coming in to do jobs that are obviously not being filled by local people, Scottish people. You're saying you need to increase the wages, but the care sector in particular said, look, increasing wages is not going to do anything about it. It's not going to fix the problem. Then what is your solution? Is it to force people off benefits? Does this individual like the idea of his elderly parents or relatives being looked after by somebody who doesn't want to do that job, who's doing it just because they don't want to see their benefits cut? I frankly would prefer somebody looking after my elderly parents or relatives if they wanted to do that job. I would prefer somebody who cares about looking after people, not there just to punch in the hours and make sure that they fill in a form and get paid at the end of the week or the end of the month. There's a big problem here, a problem of housing, a problem of public services. But the solution cannot be, let's go backwards. Let's ignore the problem because fixing that problem involves, at least in the short term and maybe medium term, relying on people from outside the country. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.